Miss Marvel, She-Hulk, and now Elena from Indiana Jones. Don't forget Ray. It is Attack of the Girl Boss, and they're always right. They have no flaws, no weaknesses, and, well, audiences are not interested. Today, we're hopping in with Chris Gore of Film Threat to talk about where did this come from and when is the end of the Girl Boss. All right, folks, welcome back to another exciting day here on the WDW Pro channel. So excited and overjoyed to have each and every one of you spending time with us. If you like content like this, consider clicking the like button, share, subscribe, and you can stick it to the algorithms when you click it. We're talking about the notification bell. Well, folks, we've got a fun conversation here for you as we dive into a trope, an archetype, a type of character that I think audiences have tuckered out with. And Mr. Gore, welcome to the channel. First time that we'll do just a conversation rather than an interview.
Well, thank you very much. Yes, let's get into it.
All right, here we go, folks. All right, so Chris, one of the first times that I ever noticed this idea of girls are better than boys, it's like a playground argument that has been bestowed upon society as something that is deserving of our attention. I don't understand why. I think it's utterly stupid. But the first time that I noticed that this was being done in movies and being done in such a way as to affirm that girls are better than boys in some way was back in 2016 when the Ghostbusters film came out. But I'm curious from you, you're just flat out an expert when it comes to cinema. You have been following this for decades. When did you begin to see this new push out of Hollywood for the girl boss?
Well, I mean, women, I've always seen movies with women as central characters, women as strong characters, and women being strong women. What has changed, and I probably noticed it with the first Star Wars sequel, The Force Awakens, was a female character that is basically just written to be a man, and then effectively is, they just make that character female. I think that the age-old argument, boys are better than girls. Girls are better than boys. Well, boys are better than girls at some things. And girls are better than boys at some things. And then there are masculine girls. We called them tomboys when I was a kid. And there are feminine boys. Doesn't necessarily mean that those children will grow up to be gay, just means that they are different, and that's there's nothing wrong with that.
Sure, and you sound like an elementary school teacher, from the 90s. Yeah, exactly. I mean, this was once upon a time extraordinarily simple.
Yeah, it was uncontroversial. But what I've seen lately is that there is a huge push for to create these strong female leads. The problem is they're writing them just like men. And what they're doing is they're not giving them challenges, and they're making them not accountable for their behavior. And it does a disservice to the young girls or young women who look up to these characters. If you look at the very first Indiana Jones movie, which was Raiders of the Lost Ark, it wasn't called Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. It was just called Raiders of the Lost Ark. Indiana Jones struggles, fails, and in the end loses. It's a lesson. It's a lesson about sticking to a goal, about striving for something, passion. I mean, that first Raiders of the Lost Ark, there's very little debate about that is the best Indiana Jones film.
Well, Chris, let me ask you this. So, because I want to emphasize what you were saying.
I think we do a disservice to young girls to show them these characters that win every time. Life is not like that. I can tell you from experience, having lived a little, life doesn't just hand you something. And we do a disservice to young women by showing them these characters that are always right and can, and don't really struggle. The other thing is there's a justification for this. There's been a justification for this recently. It's that women are now becoming the main breadwinners in families. That is a fact. And so recognizing this, what this is a data point that is true, and you're welcome to look up facts and figures and show that, show that. But women more and more are becoming the main breadwinners of families and making choices about, they have the spending power, right? What movies are we going to see? What food are we going to purchase? How often do we go to restaurants during the week, etc. Now, what Hollywood has done is interpreted this data now to say, if women are going to be choosing what movies to see, they want to see movies where they're the badass. It's not necessarily true. I would argue that the reason the Marvel Cinematic Universe became so popular, and you really saw it reach its pinnacle early at the end of Phase 1 with the Avengers, the first Avengers movie. That movie, if you look at it, is like a Chippendales show with, and every one of those characters in their individual movies, Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, all of those characters had scenes where they were shirtless. They were shirtless in scenes. And Chris Hemsworth looks pretty good. Robert Downey Jr. looked pretty good. Chris Evans looked pretty damn good. So I would argue that women like strong men. They like beefcake. They like men to be sexualized. And I don't see anything wrong with that. What they've done, though, recently, and this is not appealing to audiences, women not only like to see attractive men, they like to see sexy and attractive females. So while we've sexualized men in movies, we have desexualized women in films, and we've created this girl boss character that nobody was really asking for. So I noticed it with The Force Awakens, and I think that, and here's the difference between The Force Awakens and recent Brie Larson as Captain Marvel and Phoebe Waller-Bridge as Helena, is that I actually believe that all of those characters are written poorly. The difference with The Force Awakens and Star Wars is that Daisy Ridley is actually very likable. I think she has charisma. I think she is a very likable actress, and she's very likable on screen, and she's very attractive. All three of those characters are poorly written, very poorly written. And it's more noticeable with Helena in Indiana Jones because Phoebe Waller-Bridge herself is just not likable. I'm sorry, I don't think she's likable. I would say the same thing with Brie Larson, although I will say I believe that Brie Larson is going through something of a redemption arc. She, I think, has realized that not being likable has cost her. We covered on the Film Threat YouTube channel, we recently covered D23. There was to be a meetup. Brie Larson was going to be at a booth. There were in this giant booth, which could hold hundreds of people, all of about 30 people were there.
Yes.
Even she realizes, which is why she's changed her tune. She started a YouTube channel to try to humanize herself. She, I think, has sort of dialed back a lot of the rhetoric. She was baited at Cannes to say some negative things about Johnny Depp, and she did not do that. And I will say that a lot of the stupid things you see celebrities say that get a lot of traction in stories and whatnot, they are baited. They're trying to placate and please the interviewer, and curry favor with that person. And a lot of it is fed to them. So for the most part, these celebrities will parrot and repeat just things that they've heard, or even something that the interviewer just said, they'll just repeat it. If you see the entire interview in context, there was a James Cameron quote that went around. Point here is that all of these characters are poorly written and they're not unrealistic. And it's part of, if you look at the Joseph Campbell, The Hero's Journey, a character has to struggle. And I think a character struggling makes a character likable. And when you take a female character and you don't give her the respect to have that character struggle in life, it makes that character relatable always. We see ourselves in these characters. They're heroes, but they're flawed. That's why Marvel comics, when I was a kid reading them back in the day, the early Marvel comics, these were not legends. These were people. This was Peter Parker going, I gotta holding on to this job. I gotta finish my homework, and oh, I gotta save the day. Like that's what made Marvel relatable in terms
Yes.
of in the comic realm, you know, way back when. But this trope of the female girl boss I don't think it resonates with audiences. I just don't think it does. I think early with Ray, we didn't really know, and Daisy Ridley, you have to give her credit. She was very well cast. I mean, I would argue that what J.J. Abrams contributed was a very good new cast to Star Wars. Did nothing with them, and I think the stories were horribly written. And I think while we look fondly on the Star Wars prequels and have so many great moments and lines and whatnot, the Star Wars sequels are not going to age well. They are not going to resonate. Ray didn't really have a character arc. It was they all kicked the can to the end and wrote on this thing where Palpatine's her grandfather. Well, who are her parents? She wanted to reconcile with her parents in the first movie. Who were
Right. They completely left that alone.
We never saw them. There was never any resolution. And, maybe they should have mapped out the story before they brought on all the, the Rian Johnson, with all due respect to both Rian Johnson and J.J. Abrams, they weren't on the same page. Big mistake. Big mistake.
Yes, fair to say.
But Helena is probably, the worst example of all of this now. Really the worst example, because you have a truly poorly written character. They basically wrote her as young Indiana Jones with a sidekick, doing all the things that Indiana Jones would do and lines and things that Indiana Jones would say. And then you've paired it with an unlikable actress. Wow, is it not, I predict it's going to tank badly. So there you go.
So you've made many points. I want to touch on a few of them. First of all, when you're talking about the physical attributes of these celebrities playing these roles, and women want to see men who are in a certain condition in a certain form, but they also want to see women of a certain form. It seems to me that what you're describing is simply that we want to see the ideal played out in front of us. We don't want to see average. I mean, I think we can even strip out the sexuality from it. Now, of course, it's a key component, but I think you can actually go into a more fundamental place to say that when you go to watch art, you want to see art, and that even comes down to what is presented to you in the human form. And Hollywood seems to disagree with that. They give us the mediocre now.
Well, art is created with struggle, and we want to see our characters struggle. And when our characters are perfect and the bestest ever, and everything is super easy, barely an inconvenience, it's not interesting.
And Chris, when you were discussing that with Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark, I was thinking about, and this had never really hit me until now, but Indiana Jones does not win in that movie.
No, he failed.
That's how hard he struggles. He literally loses, and the only win he gets is that he recognizes the nascent power inside the artifact and convinces Marion to close her eyes with him. That is the win. He gets the tiniest of personal victories in that he recognizes that there is more to this world than just the physical, than just what he has believed in his skeptical mindset. And then, as a result, the bad guys, we won't say their name lest the algorithms get us here, but they are all evaporated, eviscerated, destroyed utterly by the power of something greater than humanity. And that is the win that he gets, is despite all of his failures, he knows to close his eyes and recognize true power. That's it.
Well, he is skeptical of, hocus pocus and all that. And then maybe he comes to understand that there's more to the world than just the physical, these artifacts, right? Like there's more to them. Perhaps they should be given more respect. So, but he loses in the end. He has this goal, he doesn't achieve it.
Yes.
That's interesting for a character. That's very indie film. So
that's amazing.
I don't mean INDY. I mean INDIE. Indie.
Yes. Film. Well, what other films can we think of where the lead actor, where the lead hero utterly loses and people love it? I'm hard pressed to think of another film that the hero completely and utterly loses the goal, and we still love the movie.
Right. Well, I mean, it feels like he won in some way. I mean, we were on a journey, but it's I can't, I'm trying to think of a movie where this happened with a female character recently. It just doesn't. It's now become a trope. There's certain things you can't do, right? And there's certain types of characters that can't be put in certain situations.
Yes.
It's it's really disheartening. It's affected creativity and filmmaking, and it's you see the results at the box office. It's you see audiences not reacting favorably to these films.
So the girl boss trope that we have been dealing with for the past 5, 6, 7 years, perhaps even longer than that. When I think about, of course, the issue that we had with Rey out of Star Wars, that's enough to destroy an entire franchise. Fair enough. They attempted to do the same with Miss Marvel, with Brie Larson coming into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and at the last moment, they seemed to have some common sense come into their minds, and they edited out her role with Endgame and made it less than, and they've reconfigured the Marvels. I don't know that it'll be successful still, but they've at least figured out that you can't have an all-powerful female who is completely and utterly flawless, or else audiences cannot recognize and connect with that kind of a character. But Chris, where I want to go, I think that Phoebe Waller-Bridge with Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny is going to be the end of this trope. At least I hope so. And the reason for
Well,
that, yes,
yeah, I agree. I think it will be the end of this trope because you will recognize, and what's been pointed out in every review is the thing that the biggest flaw of this movie is
yes.
her and her character. That is the biggest flaw. This movie is already on track to tank at the box office. And when it does, they're going to look around and go, maybe we put a little too much stock in this Helena character, because it's implied at the end of the film that she will go off to have more adventures.
Well, she may, but that will be in fan fiction only, I believe. But
Right.
Chris, what I want to talk about, if you could give me your thoughts on this, I think that somehow the universe is lining up in a beautiful, beautiful way to end the girl boss trope. And
Right.
it's at the behest of the Hollywood executives who apparently did not realize the symbolism that they were inserting in this film. So, spoiler ahead, folks, be warned. But in regards to Indiana Jones: The Dial of Destiny, you have the girl boss character literally at the end of the film. In order for her to win, she knocks out, she attacks the hero that we've been discussing, right? Indiana Jones, one of the greatest archetypes ever created in terms of the adventurer who is flawed and imperfect but manages somehow to overcome. You have that has become a standard bearer for that which audiences love. We can see it played out again in Star-Lord, with Chris Pratt playing that role again, this time in sci-fi. We've seen it a number of times. It is a tremendously beloved character type. And you have that character type and the icon of all icons for it, Indiana Jones. This is one of the, I mean, when you go back decades, Indiana Jones was seen as perhaps one of the greatest movie characters of all time. Now he is being knocked out by the girl trope, the stand-in, right? The archetype for that girl trope, pushed to its limits, pushed to its boundaries of what audience could possibly tolerate. She knocks him out, and she takes on the adventures instead, and he is a sad sack left at home to heal his wounds. I think, Chris, this is the ultimate metaphor. It has played itself out to an archetypal sort of end where we could not go any farther. You can't create anything that is more poignant and more poetic than that, as horrible as it may be. And I think that audiences will revolt and be revolted and be repulsed from this. What do you think?
I think so. I think that, but I think what's going to happen is box office is not just numbers and how much money films make. It is the general public voting on the films they like best. These movies I like, these movies I don't like because I've ignored them. Not only do I like this movie so much, I'm going to vote for it twice or three times. Okay. You can do that at the box office. You can vote more than once with your pocketbook, so to speak. So what I think you'll see is if you lay out the data and you look at these films where these types of characters have existed, they haven't resonated with audiences. And for example, in the case of Captain Marvel, I mean, that movie was fortunate to be in between two Avengers movies. And we were led to believe that seeing the Brie Larson Captain Marvel film was critical to our experience of Avengers. So that movie did very well. I don't expect the Marvels to do as well. But here's what's going to happen. A filmmaker in Hollywood is going to make a movie where a young woman struggles, where a young woman has struggles that only a woman could have. Not a character written as male where they just cross off the name and, they cross off the name Dick and it becomes Jane. I mean, an actual female character with female types of struggles who loses, that becomes likable in spite of her flaws, in spite of, the constant losing. That is an interesting type of character, male or female, any type of character. And Hollywood is reluctant to take certain types of people and have them fail. They vilified one group in particular, which is fine. Villain work is good when you can get it. Mads Mikkelsen is very good in this film, Dial of Destiny. He's no complaints about him. He's not talking about an aching back or bad knees. He's old as Indy, but for some reason, Indy is the one that gets these diminishing lines. Anyways, sorry for the tangent. Someone is going to make a movie with a female character that's flawed and likable, and that movie is going to be a huge hit. And it's going to resonate with not just women, it will resonate with men because we resonate with characters that struggle. And I would say that this is up to a filmmaker like, for example, a Greta Gerwig, who began as an actress, played very unconventional roles, who now has this Barbie movie coming out. I happen to think that Barbie movie is going to be a huge success.
It's a sleeper for sure.
It's going to be a sleeper hit across all demographics. And Greta Gerwig is the type of director that she recognizes this. She's not looking to make a Marvel movie, okay? But I think Greta Gerwig, having come from indie film and having come from movies in which every movie she's been affiliated with, female characters struggled. You put that into an adventure movie, a science fiction movie, a superhero movie, I think it'll resonate. And we'll see with the Marvels. Marvel knows it has a problem. They've seen Phase 4 failed, not just because of the pandemic, not just because of, habits were broken, but these characters are not resonating. They're not broadly appealing, and there's a reason for that. So I hope that, I'm always hopeful and optimistic. I think that what's going to happen is some movie's going to hit, and then Hollywood, being as stupid as Hollywood is, they'll just jump after whatever the latest trend is.
Yes, and I would like to boil this down for those who work in Hollywood so that this is very easy to grasp what we are saying. I think I can articulate this for both of us. We are saying that on both sides, and accurate to the character, right? Not trying to artificially change them, but any character who suffers greatly and overcomes that suffering and yet is not insufferable, that is an intriguing character to watch on the screen. So hopefully we will get that. The girl boss trope is not one that I think is working. I think you're exactly right, Chris, and I do believe that when Phoebe Waller-Bridge knocks out Harrison Ford, that is the ultimate metaphor for what we've been going through, and I think that audiences will be done with it. Chris, I really appreciate you coming on. I know that you have been a little bit under the weather, but I hope you are feeling much better very soon. And Chris, where can people find you on this great, big, beautiful web out there?
Look me up on Film Threat. That's THREAT, Film Threat. And we do live streams twice a week. And we're in the midst of a court case, Critics Court, Star Wars on trial. We're putting Star Wars on trial for the murder of the Star Wars franchise. So check it out.
It is fascinating stuff. I enjoyed my time over there with you doing that. And folks, Chris has been at the forefront of all of this. All of the YouTubers out there, all of the commentators out there doing this pop culture thing where we're trying to explain it, keep people ahead of the culture curve, and accurately portray what is going on in pop culture. We stand on the shoulders of Chris Gore and the work that he has been doing for decades. We all owe him a debt of gratitude. Chris, it is a joy to have you on the channel, and I wish you even greater successes in the future. Well, folks, if you enjoy content like this, consider clicking the like button, share, subscribe, and you can stick it to the algorithms when you click it. We're talking about that notification bell. The conversation here has come to a close, but the commentary just begins. It's your turn. We care about what you think. We covet your comments, so drop one down below. And wherever you are, whatever you're doing, keep learning, keep growing, and keep having fun.
Make sure to catch The Pro Show Thursdays 5 to 7 Eastern Time. Entertainment Explained, The Culture Curve Conquered, live with Pro and all his friends.